That's right. Welcome in. Welcome back, folks, to a snowy. What is the number one challenge Notre Dame faces in the modern CFP era edition of the Always Irish College Show? Welcome, everybody. Hope you're staying warm. I don't know how long this show's going to go. I got a bunch of snow I have to shovel before people that have to get into my neighborhood could come to this house. So we're going to see what we could do. Welcome, everybody, here. Here's number one. First thing I want to mention. Some of you have noticed I have been changing the set and the scene, moving things around, the audio, the lighting's been different. I'm tinkering. I need this room and this set for other things besides Always Irish now, and it needs to be multi-purpose. Check for me the sound and the lighting. I believe I adjusted both so they're a little clearer, and I don't think I look like I'm being laser beamed to the moon anymore. I don't know why. I was looking purple like there's a laser beam melting my face. I think I took care of some of that, but let me know. I think the volume should be clearer with less pitchy. Some of it's my fault because I get animated. Just give me a break. Put in the chat if it looks and sounds bad, or if I look or sound worse than usual, which is, I know, an iffy proposition. All right, here's what we're going to do. Introduction, roll call. I'm going to go over a couple things and then phone call and thoughts. We'll see how long that takes us. All right, Daniel Wade. Good to see you, Daniel. Paul's always here with the $25 holler. Paul, I'm telling you what, man. If anybody need confidence, I'd pay Paul just to tell me something nice every day. Always something good to say. And he's reading the Irish Wire articles. Check it out. It's just a different delivery. It takes some of my animated nature out of it, and then just let you read it in print on your own without my kind of interjection of whatever the emotion is on this show. It's just a different way to consume Notre Dame media, folks. Paul, it's so good to see you. Nick says, I'd like to see us get a couple more D linemen. Good morning, John, and everybody else. Good to see you. Mark Holzum's always here. Good to see you, Mark. Patrick's here. He's playing nice with the Rudiger so far. He's playing pretty nice with the Rudiger. We'll see how that goes. We got a 20-year history there. We'll see how that goes in the chat. Phil, it's always good to see you. Angela, it's always good to have a Rudiger here. I tell you all the time. Steven, good to see you here, Steven. Good morning, Irish Nation. Good morning to you, too. Oh, boy. Oh, who else do we have here? Mikey Pauls. Mikey took a break from deadlifting 4 of my body to come in here and say hi. Good to see you. You probably could bench press 3 of me. Oh, not going to lie. Matt Radke. Good to see Matt. Matt, good guy there. I believe in Tennessee. Hope to see you again at the Blue and Gold game. Here we go. Paul says, if Marcus keeps going like he is, I believe we are 1 to 2 years away from a national title. I went over this last week a little bit. I feel like this roster, to me, is 2 full cycles on the early end, 3 from being where I want it to be. And that's just me. Maybe I have a high standard of what I'm comfortable with depth-wise. It is at that level, it isn't even just your frontline guys. We all need to start thinking about the modern playoff era where Notre Dame's going to have to win 4 essentially top 10 games in a row. That becomes a battle of attrition, and Notre Dame needs to build more depth at key positions for that. Like, you got to realize that all changed. Think about the difference of 2012. You're 1 play away from playing who? Kansas State in the championship. You play a good game and you're champions. Even moving forward, you have a great undefeated season. You got to win. You got to beat 4 good teams probably, right? I'm sure you're going to sneak a team in there that doesn't belong, but whatever, for some reason or another. That's a deep run, and you need to be able to account for that on your roster. I think Notre Dame's 2 to 3 cycles away from that. For me being comfortable with that deep of a run. That's my opinion. I would love to know what you guys think. Here we go. Steven, 66 degrees here in Melbourne, Florida. Just saying, well, I got 4 inches of snow on the driveway blowing around. Steven, where's the invite? I'm coming to town for the winter. You got an internet connection? We will fire up Always Irish from your patio. We'll overlook the pool and we'll do the show. Notre Dame 2164. What's up, John? Here we go. Dr. John, I see him waiting on the phone lines. Good morning from a rather cool Arizona. Oh, freeze warning. Look out, you guys. You better put on your park out there in Arizona. Them rattlesnakes freeze. The format, Bruce. Bruce, what's going on? Bruce is our Notre Dame guy down in Jacksonville, does football media, all sorts of media. Go subscribe to his channel. Really good guy. Great family Notre Dame guy. Love him. The biggest challenge is doing NIL without turning it into simply buying players, offering money to come to ND. ND being ND, that's never just going to work. Hashtag the format podcast. Brucey, you and I must be friends. You might be onto something. Jacob says it seems to be a bit better. I'm trying. Good, but a bit red. I'm trying, man. I changed the lighting. There's 2 cycles on this lighting, and one of them's like fluorescent emergency room white shining in my face, but I need it for the green screen background. And then I turned it to browner. Trust me, this is better than the other one. It looked like I was dissolved into the atmosphere, my face. Oh, Peyton 800. John, thank you. I used to lose my mind and scream like you do, but since I've been tuning in, I enjoy watching you lose it so I don't have to. Peyton, that's what I'm here for. The beginning of this show, 2016, 2017, 2018, like that area, that's what this was. My outlet for what Kelly allowed to happen in 16 turned into other people just letting me let it rip. I'll tell you, I've been a little more calm since Marcus is here. I genuinely mean that, you guys. If you follow my show, there's been less yelling, less major freaking out. And it's because I feel internally that this guy just gets it. And the biggest part is, I believe in my heart, Marcus Freeman is literally doing everything he can to get this program as close as he can to winning a title. I genuinely couldn't say that about the previous staff. Therefore, it was very hard for me to take when Notre Dame loses to Cincinnati at home in the hardest game on the schedule, which is Cincinnati at home, which should tell you a lot. There's extra vitriol from me when we lose a game like that, when I know behind the scenes our coach is not putting all the effort possible into making us not lose that game. It's just different. So I have Marcus worries. They're just a whole different set of worries. The Hart Foundation, good to see you here. So Jay Scott pushed back his commitment. Sounds like a good thing to me. There's a lot of debate on that. Is that a really good thing or a really bad thing? Or does it not even matter anymore? Like, I genuinely mean that. That's the big deal. St. Ignatius. Pat knows all about St. Ignatius. Pat Cotter in the chats. He was in the same Catholic league I was, the Chicago Catholic League. St. Ignatius. Everybody wants this guy. We were thinking he's going to visit Notre Dame, commit, and then he backed off. Apparently, it's Notre Dame, Georgia. What a difference in life. Notre Dame or Georgia. You're a Chicago area guy. You stay close to home. You hit that toll road, and you're at Notre Dame. Or you go down to Georgia, win yourself a title, get yourself a bag of money, a lot of women. You don't have to worry about school, okay? These are very divergent paths for young Mr. Scott. Very divergent paths. Nobody could say, why would you go to Georgia? No one could say that. NFL factory. Now it's a championship factory. It's also a money factory. No matter what they tell you or what you know, it is a money factory, verified. These are very different ways of life for this young man to have to figure out. So I don't know whether it matters or not anymore. Let me ask you this. This is on my notes. Notre Dame just got 8 crystal balls from Tom Loy for this 24 class. Some big names. Crystal ball to the Irish at key positions. After last year, why am I supposed to get excited about crystal balls or even verbal commitments of very good players to Notre Dame? I'm waiting. You guys tell me. Why? Why? Are we just going to get burned year after year the night before signing day by blank NIL checks? But for a whole year, I'm supposed to log into 247 and feel comfortable because I see a guy listed by our name. That's over. It's over. I can't do it anymore. It's over. This isn't 15 years ago where John has nothing going on but to refresh the one internet site that talks about Notre Dame recruiting and see if we got Eddie Vanderdoes in the middle of the night. I cannot allow myself to get excited for crystal balls and verbals anymore. It's logically and emotionally irresponsible for fans to do, and most definitely for the staff to do. Haven't you learned? You can't count on anything. Till that paper's signed, you can't count on anything. Is this dynamic that I just mentioned Notre Dame's biggest hurdle in the modern playoff era as we sit? I'm asking. Bruce said this is his answer. I'm in line with him. Is this Notre Dame's biggest hurdle? Follow me here. Losing your best guys last minute, being a hostage to those checks like last year and all of that. What else is Notre Dame's biggest hurdle, if not this? Somebody answer that. If it isn't this dynamic, what is Notre Dame's biggest hurdle to getting where they want to get in the modern playoff era? Here's how I see it. We know from the guys Notre Dame's targeted that we're interested or committed. Dante Moore comes to mind. Keeley comes to mind. Peyton Bowen comes to mind. Those are all top-level players, premier players at premier positions. They could all get into Notre Dame. Obviously, we didn't land them, but the ability to recruit them and have them commit tells me the grades weren't an issue. That tells me top 5 classes yearly are definitely possible with the grades and the effort the staff puts in. All right, we have a good staff and the talent is getting better. But that leaves me in a spot to say the one thing we have the least control over is killing us. And I hate it. If my number one problem I saw was something Marcus could handle himself, it wouldn't be the number one problem because I trust that guy to know the dynamics and be able to address them. But Marcus has no control over blank NIL checks coming in at the last minute to our guys. He also has minimal, if not no control over what Notre Dame could do with this. So I guess if you're asking Marcus to push Notre Dame to be more involved in NIL, fine. I don't want Notre Dame to do blank check NIL. I want them to be heavily involved and offer competitive stuff, but well within the framework of what Notre Dame is. I don't want us to be like everybody else. So then you're boxed in. This is the problem. This is why this is the topic of the show. Then you're boxed in. I don't want us to match NIL, but we still have to be competitive to get those top guys. That's a tough needle to thread. And it just makes me wonder, is that the number one thing that's going to hold us back? And the one thing Marcus, who I trust the most of anybody around the program, has the least amount of control over. The control aspect is what makes it hard for me. Like with Kelly, I could just say, how about you actually try and recruit it? How about that? How about we try you recruit the way you have to be competitive in Notre Dame? That's something that was totally within Kelly's control, and he couldn't or wouldn't do it. This is different. And that's why this is more frustrating in a way. Kelly's was frustrating in a way because he could change it and wouldn't. But something like this, I don't know. So that's tricky. But as far as I see it, that might be the number one hurdle. Everything else, top 5 classes are possible. Kelly told you, shopping down the other aisle, we can't get these guys. It's harder here. Top 5 classes are possible every year at Notre Dame. You got to figure out this dynamic, how to hold your top guys, though. You just do. $4.99, V1 Rotate V2. You're always there for me. I appreciate it. My wife makes fun of me for saying your intro with you during all your videos. Do you know how many people do that? It's fun. It's fun. I did it once on accident, and now it's a thing. I literally did it once or twice. It just came out. And then other people started repeating it, and then it became a thing. It's all about the rasp. You got it. Sometimes I could deliver it better than others. You got to get the right. You got to do it right. You can't crack it. SB Flood, good to see you here. On the roster, NIL, where ND fits, though. I have been reviewing ND's roster and recruiting for the last decade or so. ND has so much talent attrition and missed on a ton of recruits. Oh, that's the history. Sounds about right to me. You know, the all-star team, think about this. You Notre Dame people, you know. Do you know, can you imagine the all-star team Notre Dame would have if they got all the guys they finished second for in a recruiting battle? We'd be winning Super Bowls. You think back the last 10 or 15 years to all the talent Notre Dame finished second in a recruiting battle for. It'd be an all-pro team. It's unbelievable how many of these races Notre Dame recruits great in and finishes second, which does you nothing. You get nothing and you like it. Like it's wild. It's wild. Pat says pushing it back is a good thing. Here's one reason I kind of agree with this. I get it that for emotional comfort, a lot of Notre Dame people would like the guy to commit to Notre Dame. You see him under our name. That no longer means they're going there. It just kind of means you're a leader in the clubhouse as far as at this point in recruiting. Even me saying that is uncomfortable because it's changed everything. A verbal commitment is no longer that. It is kind of naming a leader in the clubhouse temporarily. This guy pushing his commitment back, I get some people want that name by us right away. Wouldn't you rather have this than a Keeley where he's in the fold, people start to count on him, and then you kind of start looking at other areas of the roster recruit, and before you know it, you don't have Keeley? I would rather know up front that a guy's not ready, so everybody knows that dynamic right out in the open. I would rather he commit to Notre Dame, not flirt with anybody else in Georgia and go to Notre Dame. But if he needs to wait, I would almost rather he does that than commit and then back out and play games. So I agree with that. $5 holler from Paul. He's paying the phone lines. I'm happy Freeman is in charge. It makes me so much hopeful for something I didn't have with Kelly. It's just effort. It all starts and ends with effort. The personality and all that is icing on the cake. Effort, 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 effort. It is night and day, and there is no way to compare the recruiting operation and effort from the last regime to this one. It's just not even in the same stratosphere. That's another reason I'm getting frustrated with the NIL checks, ruining the top ends of some of our recruiting classes, because I see the work Freeman's doing, getting to the finish lines harder than ever because of the evolved nature of NIL. And I really don't like the dynamic of us being hostage in the 11th hour. And then you're in a position to just tell the guy 40 for 40, dude, pick the books. It's not, you have no leverage. You have no leverage. It's rough when you have an 18-year-old being offered maybe millions of dollars and your best pitch is go for the books, man. I'm just telling you, it's a rough sell for an 18-year-old. Maybe you, as a 42-year-old accountant with all your life experience, looking at the big picture, maybe it's different for you. You need to put yourself in an 18-year-old's shoes, not a 45-year-old responsible adult looking at the big picture. That's not who's making these decisions. Sometimes we get wrapped into that. We're thinking of it how we would. Think of it how an 18-year-old would. It's rough. Jacob says, I don't know why we don't get more Chicago guys. That Chicago Catholic League used to be Notre Dame Central, and Lou would roll in there, get all the offensive linemen that everybody we wanted. Everybody else could go to Northwestern or Wisconsin or Purdue. Let Notre Dame go through there, get what they need. The rest of them go wherever you're going to go. That used to be the way. We used to go to high school games, and there would be the Notre Dame staff recruiting our guys. Like, that used to be the Friday nights when I was growing up. Dad used to say, Notre Dame's recruiting this guy. Let's go watch, see who from the staff is there. Get in there and own that pipeline on that damn toll road. Own it. All right, we got somebody that loves the Friday night show. It's more laid back. It just is. I know, so I could tell from the calls, people were drinking. Some people were a little more laid back with the language. maybe even myself included. That was kind of fun. Here's the issue. It's not a huge crowd, and I don't know if it's the first time on a Friday night and people didn't know it was available. I don't know whether people are out with the family on a Friday night. I'd like to get more people. Maybe if we do it consistently, it will grow, kind of like how these did. Matt says, I'm not getting excited by any verbal commitments. I get excited to a point. I get excited to a point where it's good to know a high-level player's considering Notre Dame that seriously. And then that's it. There is no more me dreaming of that guy like the Rudy scene. You have any delusions of grandeur of running out of there with your gold helmet shining and no, I don't even let it get that far with these verbals. It's logically and emotionally irresponsible. It's intellectually irresponsible to get attached to these verbals committed to your school now. That's how far I'm going. It's emotionally and intellectually irresponsible. It just is. Steven says ND getting changes to the culture. Freeman outworks Swamp Thing in his sleep. There's no doubt about that. That's a fact. Patrick, did you see the Reese story? Visiting CCL schools, looking at some kids, but it's more about reestablishing a pipeline that BK let dry up. What I think BK fell in love with some pipelines he did have that worked for him, let other ones dry and rust out. That's another thing where your head coach being on the road a lot matters. It's just a difference when the head guy at Notre Dame's banging on your high school door than when it's the third assistant on the offensive staff. It's just different. Getting a guy on the road like Freeman who wants to be a starter and a closer, not just a closer, is a big philosophical shift. It is. Let's see. Not placing much stock in early 5-star recruit commitments. You can't. Yep, he was at Providence too, about 40 minutes from where I'm at. Let's go, baby. A lot of talent there. All boys school, I believe. A lot of talent. That's why we could never compete when we played Providence in baseball or anything. We used to get our heads kicked in. They got double the enrollment, all guys, and then our little school had half the enrollment, and it was 50-50 guys, girls. How could you compete? We didn't have enough athletes and enough big ones. I didn't help with that, that's for sure. Scott's a major difference maker. ND gets him. He is that plug and play right away, given the D-line talent level it hasn't had since Bryant Young. Yeah, that's what Keeley was too. These guys are the ones these SEC programs are going after. They know the value. They know the value. So this, Pat, I love your comment. Same thing we said about Keeley, and look what happened. That's the danger. I miss your yelling. Did you lose the passion? I need things to yell at. Nothing I've yelled about on this show is manufactured or artificial since 2016. There is not one time I ever wrote notes and then wrote in the bullet point, yell here. Like, get emotional here. Yell at Kelly here. Like, no. Whatever happens here just comes out. So it's just the truth. There is less big picture things for me to yell about with Freeman because I agree with the way he's running the operation. And I totally didn't with the other guy. Luke, all right, we're almost caught up with the chats. Then we'll go to the phones. I want to know what you guys think. Notre Dame's number one inhibiting factor to winning in the playoff era. Luke Collins, the fact we cannot get a first-round bye in the expanded playoffs because we're not in a conference. Could be the best team, but always have to play another playoff game. Yeah, okay, so you're answering my question saying that would be the number one impediment. Listen, it really is a big difference having to win 4 games versus 3. That is a huge difference. Any game you play is a game you could lose. Any game you play is a game where your best guys could get hurt, affecting you for the next ball game if you're in a playoff run. All right, so I agree with that I don't like it, that Notre Dame's undefeated, ranked first, and you're going to have to deal with this. My position is we need to figure out how to land the top guys that are instant playmaker, difference makers in these recruiting classes. We need to get better at being able to find a way to do that, to be in the position to worry about these playoff expanded games. So I agree with you, Luke. I don't like that dynamic, but we got to figure out the one I'm worried about, or this one isn't even going to be a problem. I'm telling you guys, as good as that 83% blue chip rate is, you add Keely Bowen to it, or it's night and day. You're getting an instant impact starter at multiple positions. That's how you close the gap. We always talk about the gap. That's how you close the gap. 5 stars that make plays as freshmen. I always see that. How does Notre Dame close the talent? It's easy. Find guys that can play right away and be good. There, I just answered it. Oh, John, that's hard. There isn't that many of them guys in the country. Yeah, I know. And everybody's fighting for them. And a lot of them are fighting for them dirty. We got to find a way to win some of these battles. Maybe it just comes down to mom. One of these kids needs a mom who they listen to enough that says, listen, man, go to Notre Dame. Okay, that's what we're doing as a family. We're Notre Dame people. Maybe it comes down to that. Pat, I didn't like the idea to committing right away. Any kid who has offers from everyone really needs to take their time. Don't rush the decision. From what I've heard late last night, it looked like Scott was down to Notre Dame and Georgia. And I already went over it. It's just, those are just 100% opposite ways of living. 100% opposite ways of living, man. That's a big difference. It's not like Notre Dame or Stanford. No. That's a big difference. Oh, man. Paul says, send in some super chats. Help John out, which he deserves. I'm telling you what, man. Paul, you were my bodyguard. Oh, I love you. Yeah, people like the Friday night show. So did I. I got to get more people here. Maybe make it more of a routine. Oh, let's see. How should NIL work in ND's favor? I think you need to come up with, you just need to be a little bit more out there with what you can offer. It's just Notre Dame has some NIL stuff going on. But what I feel like is it's always like hush, hush. Like I can't describe it, but whenever I bring up a big time Notre Dame NIL complaint, people in the know tell me we're more involved than you realize. They say, John, they're more involved than you realize. Those guys have money coming. That's a part of my complaint, is that it doesn't feel that way. That's not the narrative. And it's not a dirty little word anymore to be involved. That's an issue to me. People will say, John, they're more involved than you realize. That's an issue. That perception that Notre Dame's not involved when they really are. They were ranked in the top 10 for NIL this last year. So I just want it to be a little bit less of a dirty little word, like we feel like we're doing something wrong, that a guy got some money. Like, no. Oh, man. Pigskin, good to see you, brother. It's good to see him. Everybody, Clemson, if you're into Clemson football, especially when Notre Dame and Clemson play, hop over to Pigskin Pete's channel. Long-time YouTube guy, long-time friend. Pigskin Pete's one of the people who got me going as far as I am on this path, and I owe him thank you. Answered a bunch of questions, helped me with technology, all of that. A guy like that could say, screw you, John, I'm further down this path and you figured out on your own, and he didn't, and took the time to help me multiple years, 4 or 5 years ago, behind the scenes. So Pigskin Pete, good guy, real life friend, great guy. Support his channel. He deserves it. Good guy. P. Crowley, 513. You've got a young black coach and lawyers out the ass as alumni. Start an NIL initiative or something. Trust me, been there. That's my plan. I have a full PowerPoint presentation on deck. And the next time that I'm out with certain Notre Dame people and we're at lunch with certain Notre Dame people, I might just have to pull that baby out. I got ideas for Notre Dame and NIL. I really do. Okay, we're going to go down a little bit. SB Flood, $2 holler phone calls coming up. Sorry, I wanted to get through the comments. Friday night culture viewership, $2 fee. There you go. $2 holler. Here we go. Look at this. You guys, what did y'all get paid today or what? I'll take it. $9.99. The 2023 season is predicated on Hartman's health. If he stays healthy and the mix of incoming talent stays healthy, along with the current roster, Notre Dame does not lose a game. Ooh, baby. That's a lot. I get, okay, so you're banking on a big Hartman bump. I'll allow for that. I'll allow for that for sure. Man, I have questions other places about being undefeated. Like that's the issue. If you want to make it about Hartman doesn't instantly solve some of my defensive front seven complaints. That's an issue. Like that's where this comes full circle. I thought about this too. How much better do I think we're going to be just for Hartman? That doesn't solve the defensive issues. We're light on that defensive front, and I sit there at night and toss and turn my little Irish head about it. I'm not kidding. I don't know about you guys, but I lay there and I'm like, all right, I feel like that offense is trending up, and on defense, we're a little light. This can never turn into a dynamic where Notre Dame's offense gets more exciting and more explosive and the defense drops back a little bit. You're in the exact same damn spot you started, just a different thing to yell at. Like, no, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. I'm going to lose my mind, okay? Michael Parks, somebody had to get me excited. John, 5 stars is not the answer. What is then? What is then? I've had this argument 600 times, and I'm telling you, I've done the research. In the last dozen years, 10 of the 12 programs that won titles were ranked in the top 5 in recruiting for multiple years before they won the title. The outliers are teams, Auburn and Clemson, that had the best quarterbacks in the country that year. All right, so I've done the research. The teams that are winning are doing it with top 5 talent, which is 5-star guys in your class. If you want a top 5 ranking, you got to have some of that. That's who's winning. Top 5 recruiting for multiple years leading into the title year, and or having the best quarterback in the country that can raise everything else and overcome some other roster deficiencies. I'm not making it up. It's not my opinion. That's who's winning. Top 5 recruiting efforts, multiple years stacked, and or the best quarterback in the country. That's the bar. That is who's winning championships, period. That's not an opinion. It is a fact. I've done the research out of curiosity myself. Top 5 classes, 2 to 3 years going into the title year, and or best player in the country at the most important position. Deb Thomas, good to see you, Deb. Deb, it's been hit or miss in the offseason. I'm glad to see you here. It's comforting seeing longtime people. Oh, technical technician. This is dangerous. John is the only ND talking ed I listen to. I'm a talking ed for sure. I just don't know what's coming out. That's for sure. Here we go. Jacob says, I'd be super chatting, but I'm certainly currently seeking employment. Listen, Jacob, I just happy to have you here. Don't blow any money on me if you don't want to. Oh, that's fine. What is this? I thought BVG was the guy who got this train started. Yeah, who's responsible for the BVG nightmare? Brian Kelly for starting it and then not finishing it right away. All roads lead back to Brian Kelly as far as John being mad. It's like, yeah, BVG jump-started some of this. And so did Kelly by not firing the guy when he should have. What are you talking about? It's all connected, man. Oh, it's all connected. Let's see. Here we go. KM. I get it, John, but we won 9 games with Buckner. We did? I don't remember that. I think you mean Pine because Buckner was hurt. Our defensive backfield, serviceable. Hartman can win us shootouts that we get into. It's fine. I'm worried about that defensive front. I'm going to tell you the one thing. All right, we're getting to the phones. I'm caught up with the chats. There we go. Sorry, you guys waiting, but if I don't get to them chats right away, I'm never going to get to them because we're going to talk and then more are going to come in. There's no easy way to do it. I'm sorry. Again, we're in a scenario where Hartman can win us shootouts, win us some games we're not used to winning, put more points on the board. That's fine. But when it comes to winning, particularly the big 3 games on the schedule next year, I need that defensive front to be more reliable. And I see a lot of the Hartman rising what's possible. And I agree with that. The guy don't play defense. So yes. What is this? As a fan base, we try to downplay the lack of 5 stars and play the we develop 3 and 4 star cards. 100%. 100% correct. You know what I hear all the time? I see it on Twitter all the time. Recruiting rankings don't matter. The stars don't matter. I always see those tweets that the stars don't matter. Here's what I find interesting about that. No fan of a team who loads up on 5 stars and gets those guys ever says the stars don't matter. Do you ever find it interesting? It's only fans of teams who don't land them that say that they're not important. I don't think you could overlook that. I never see a team in the top 5 in recruiting, and then the fans are going, yeah, recruiting rankings don't matter. I guess we're number 3, but it doesn't matter. 3 or 20, same to me. No one says that when their team lands the top guys. You only hear that excuse from fans and media of teams that don't land those guys. And oh, by the way, it's a lie. The whole theory is a lie that you could just develop 3 and 4 star guys and then beat Georgia. No, it ain't happening. And if it does, it's a one-off, not something you could live off of. You need to develop the 3 and 4 star guys while you also have the big time guys that could play right away. It isn't one or the other. It's both. I always tell that to people too. It's both. Yes, you need 3 and 4 star depth guys that are going to develop their bodies and their maturity. You need that process going on while Keeley is making plays as a freshman, while Bowen is making pick sixes and punt returns as a freshman. Okay, so there you go. KM did a little of my research. The last 6 national champions had top 5 classes. It absolutely matters. The whole point of all this is talent. The whole point of this is talent. Of course it matters. All right, phone calls. We're getting to Dr. John first. We'll get to everybody else. We actually have a bunch of callers today. I'm kind of surprised on a random day where I didn't know we were doing this. We'll have to keep it a little quicker, which is fine. Derek Brady. Defense says no excuses either. Way too much talent to not dominate the teams we should. I agree with that. And I feel a lot better about Notre Dame's secondary than I have in a long time, which is rare. The middle 2 parts of that defense, I have concerns where light up front, and I don't know how those get fixed right away. With the linebackers, I think there's a lot more to work with. There's a lot more talent, guys you can move in and out. Something was off there. The linebackers were a step slow all year. Slow to shed a block, slow to get home on a blitz, slow to identify at something, just a step off. Like too much thinking and not enough reacting. And the best linebackers that any of us know are instinctual. The best linebackers in America have always been cerebral. Guys that feel the game, know where the ball's going to go because they feel it. They don't think it, they feel it. And those are the best linebackers. And so Notre Dame's got a lot of talent there. You're going to have to move guys around or do something. Here's the other thing with the defense. I promise we're going to the calls after this. The other thing with the defense is second to last in the whole country in touchdown rate in the red zone allowed. You must be outside of your damn mind. Are you serious? How is Notre Dame, with the talent Notre Dame has, I'm not saying it's Georgia's defensive front. I'm not. But with the talent Notre Dame has, and as decent as the defense played through big stretches of this year, something's way off that we're second to last in the whole country in red zone touchdown rate. That looks like an anomaly. Something's going wrong. Like that is a bizarre anomaly that this defense has that amount of talent and it's second to last in touchdown rate allowed. Think if you even switched 50 or 60% of those into threes instead of sevens, How much better does Notre Dame's defense look right away? Right away. You could let them score, let them get in the red zone, make it 3 and not 7. That would change everything right away. And so I think there's some quick tweaks that will make this defense a lot better, but bulk up front, I don't know how you change that. Like, Lewis Nix isn't here. You need an anchor guy that for that point, and I'm not comfortable that we're there. And I need some rush guys off the edge. Like, that's where we're light right now. Sorry. Oh, let's see. Jay Lehman. Good to see you, Jay. Jay's one of the nicest guys around. I could tell just from Twitter. Always puts uplifting, thoughtful things for people. Nice guy. Dr. John 612, we're talking to you.
Hello, John.
How are you, John?
Well, it's a little cold down here in AZ. Consequently, at 20 after midnight tonight, we're flying to Key West.
I'm telling you, John, you were on the move, man. Every time I talk to you, you're on the move doing something. I want to see, send us pictures from you living it up at 2 a.m. at the popular club there in Key West.
Yeah, right. Well, they're probably going to plant me somewhere that hour of the night. I don't know that I can function. But
safe travels, John. Safe travels, my friend. I want to ask you, John.
Yeah, thank you.
John, you've seen a lot of Notre Dame football. You've gone through a ton of just different vibes, different coaching iterations, different trending of Notre Dame being up and down through your life. As we enter this modern era, what do you think is the biggest challenge keeping Notre Dame from reaching their goals?
Well, I think the biggest thing is Marcus has got to sell kids on an education. The thing is, if a kid can pick up $1 million easily and doesn't take into consideration, the rest of his life and the quality of it, the money's always going to talk.
Yeah, it's tough. And I think here's the issue, though, John. There's nobody else I trust better to sell that message than Marcus Freeman. He does it in a modern, hip way while maintaining our values. I have complete confidence he's selling things the right way. And I never knew that about Kelly. So I was always going, well, what would happen if we got a guy in here who did it the right way and with the right effort? I wonder how much more we could get out of this. I just don't want it to be a situation where every year we're held hostage for our top players. And you just got to tell the guy, go for the books and not the money. I don't know how many of those you're going to win when you're dealing with an 18-year-old.
Yeah, it's tough. I'm thinking about your 5-star thing, and I think you're correct. But the other side of the coin is kids develop at different ages.
Mm-hmm.
I think we do have a very good coaching staff right now, and these guys, I think, need to find some 3-star gems that just haven't blossomed yet, and make them 5 stars. I'm thinking about, of course, this is a transition from college to pro, but you familiar with Adam Thielen of the Vikings?
Yeah.
He came out of Minnesota State and Mankato, wasn't drafted by anybody, walked on at the Vikings and became All-Pro.
John, I'm greedy. I want both. John, I'm greedy. Yeah. I'm greedy. I want both. You need both. I need those developmental depth guys while I have freshmen that are out there playing right away too. Like, that's Notre Dame's sweet spot. You need both. You need both. If you had a Keeley and a Bowen out there that could play right away and add to that depth, and you have a bunch of guys developing their bodies, bulking up, learning, whatever, that's the ideal spot. It's not one or the other. It's a blend of both. I don't like the hostage situation, John. I feel like Notre Dame's going to be held hostage every time we get a top guy, and it's a very awkward, uncomfortable feeling.
Well, it's like somebody out in the business world that every company wants, and they're going to play the game just like these kids are going to play the game.
Yeah. But I trust Marcus.
You know,
I trust the effort. I trust the message. It's just, I hate feeling like this is out of our control. Like, I just don't know how much Marcus could do to negate this. And that, if it was something in his control, I feel confident in him. I don't want this to be a yearly thing where the top guys get poached. That's that's hard.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on Marcus, because as I've said in the chat, I think it was Friday night, I haven't had this much respect for a Notre Dame football coach since Ara Parseghian came on the scene.
And explain why. Explain to me why. I love this history with you. That's why you're my favorite guy here, because you're a window into that history as a guy who lived it. Explain to me what you mean when you make that comparison between those two for guys younger like me who didn't get to experience the era. I love this. Explain that connection to the group.
Well, I just think, first of all, their demeanors are very similar. They are very calm. I think they think things through before they act. I haven't seen Marcus turn purple yet on the sideline, as we saw in year 2 or 3 of, I guess I've labeled him now the Cajun Queen.
The Cajun Queen. God, man, I thought Swamp Thing was good. Cajun Queen is way better. Man, you outdid me on that one. I'm a little upset I didn't think of it.
Well, it's only because my 82-year-old mind couldn't remember Swamp Thing. So
I'm glad you created.
Yeah,
I'm glad you created. It's just, as long as it rhymes and it's offensive, then I'm good with it. Good job. Good job. Hey, let me ask you this, John. So you see all that with Ara and Freeman, and I feel it too. It's another guy who knows that it's not about his ego. It's about Notre Dame first. And I always say those are the guys who have a chance to succeed at Notre Dame, are the ones who know it isn't about them. And it's about that lady, that 16-foot gold statue on top of that administration building. And it does give me comfort. What do you make of Notre Dame being second to last in red zone defense? How could it be possible with our talent? Is that schematic? Something's wrong, John. We have too much talent to be second to last. Give me a freaking break.
Well, I'm gonna cite a book that I had to read in a marketing class at Notre Dame. It was called How to Lie with Statistics.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would have to see what's the difference between second to last and in the top 10. I don't know how fine a line that is. Is it?
Yeah, that's. I get what you're asking.
Percent.
I get what you're asking, but whatever it is, I'm not going to like when we're second to last. The talent alone indicates that should never be possible. That's why it's throwing me off. Now, John, on the plus side, I feel like that's a very bizarre anomaly. And if you shore some things up down there, Notre Dame's defense looks a lot better right away, giving up 3s and not 7s. And John, if this Hartman offense legitimately takes off, that also helps the defense because they're going to be out there less. So they're going to wear down less and they're exposed less. I think there's opportunities for that defense to get better if they shore up that front. I don't want us to get ran on next year. That's my worry.
Well, I agree with that. But then when I go back to this second to last thing, I ask you this question. If we had given up one less touchdown in the red zone, how many spots would we have jumped up?
First place. First place. No, I don't know. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I don't know how fine a stat it is.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but you also know me and know I'm not going to like seeing us second to last, no matter what.
Well, of course not.
It's wild.
Of course not.
So John, I don't know, man. It's the off season is wild. Sometimes I can get in my own brain and just overthink things and there's no solution and you stew on them. And so sometimes I bring these ideas to the show and just throw it at you guys to see what you think.
Well, talking about the off season, I flashed on Friday night, and I just lucked out that I caught you Friday night after I got back from dinner. That was so much fun. That was a gas.
John, I'm telling you.
You didn't have as many people, but
I'm telling you.
It was fun.
My idea, I wanted to test, one, the time frame, just see how many people are available. And maybe if it was more regular, I'm sure it would gain steam. I just kind of did it out of nowhere as a test. But I noticed right away, people are in a better mood, man. It's a Friday night. People are pouring a bourbon or they're drinking their beer, relaxing. Like, I just noticed people were more animated, and that, like, not me, because I'm animated all the time, but like people were just a little more amped up, and the calls had a little more spike to them. It's something about that night thing. It was a different vibe for sure. I liked it.
It was. You went a long time, didn't you?
Over 3 hours. We went over 3 hours. It was like 8 to 11:15. I mean, it was fun, but it was just fun. When you're having fun, it's not work or you're not watching the clock. You're just talking to people. It's great.
Yeah, it was. It was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Oh.
Anyway, partner, I haven't thrown one thing in my suitcase yet for Key West, so I better get my day rolling.
Hey, you that. Hey, John, what color Speedo are you bringing to Key West? What color Speedo is it? What are you working with?
I'm sorry, what now?
I said, what color Speedo bathing suit are you bringing to Key West? I want to know. You got a big shamrock, one with a shamrock in the front? What are you working with?
What kind of drugs are you using this morning?
I'm not sure whether I'm using them or I need to, John.
Very subdued.
John, I don't know. I don't know whether I'm using the drugs or I need some drugs. It's one or the other. I'm not sure which end I'm on. All right, get packed.
Hey,
get packed.
You got a snowstorm going there?
Yeah, we got like 4 inches coming down right now, and it's thick. It's wet and heavy and thick. So I'm gonna get out there and shovel the old driveway soon. But get down there to Key West. Be safe.
Neighborhood?
I know. I usually just do it. Whatever. It's good exercise as long as they don't find me face down on the driveway. All right, John. Safe travels.
Okay, partner. Good talking to you.
Enjoy it. Have fun.
Have a great one.
This dude is all over. This dude is all over. He lives a more exciting life than I do. I'm telling you. Jay Lehman, $20. And I appreciate it. You guys are generous today. Go Irish. Only lose 121 game in the 2023 regular season. One of the big 3, I presume. I don't know. 773. You're talking to me.
Hi, John.
What's up?
Nothing. What have you been up to?
Nothing. What's Notre Dame's number 1 impediment in the modern era, Patrick?
I don't think it's NIL. I just don't think it's NIL. I think it's
is it a blend? Is it a blend of like a few different modern factors? What are you thinking?
Maybe. I don't know. I just don't think it's NIL. I think NIL is going to sort itself out. It's a system that cannot sustain itself, and it's going to one or two things is going to happen. College football is going to collapse under its weight because there's only going to be a handful of schools that can actually pay the money to compete.
Yeah.
And then you're going to end up with a conference of like Alabama, Oklahoma, Oregon, USC, the schools that can pay. And then you're going to have like the rest of college football.
And see, but that's not good for anybody, is it? But see, the experiment with NIL, I thought there was a theory, Pat. In a way, this will balance out the talent because before you knew who was paying the bag of money behind the scenes and then they get the guy. No one else has a shot. The idea was now this is out in the open. It levels the playing field. But I think what you're finding are the people who already had a system now have a good system because it's legal and they can amplify what they've already been doing. And so they're in a better spot.
It all comes down to who's willing to pay. Notre Dame is not willing to pay. I don't want people to think Notre Dame is paying. And I've been saying this from day one. Notre Dame is paying. As you said, John, they're the top 10 in NIL?
Yep, and it was
Notre
surprising.
Dame is paying.
They were top 10. Yeah, and Michigan was too. And
Notre
Michigan's
Dame,
another school that people say, oh, they're not involved. They were in the top 10 with that Jordan brand.
Yeah. But see, I think the reason why, it's like you look at what Oklahoma did and what Oregon did this year. They're paying huge money to top players. Notre Dame and Michigan are paying money to all players.
Yeah. Yep.
So there's if the numbers may be equaling out. I doubt it, but that's probably why Notre Dame is coming in there, because they have a plan for everybody, and I think that makes a difference. You know, I like following Dr. John because he offers such great insight into. I loved his era. I loved his era Parseghian comparison with Marcus, and I think he's not I have to go back to my dad, like you would have to go back to your dad to learn about era and what that was like. But my dad says similar stuff of how Freeman goes about it, and this whole thing, the way this is working out, it's going to come down to the parents. It's always going to come down to the parents and whether or not they're in the picture, because these kids right now, you're going to throw millions of dollars at a kid. He's going to be like, hell yeah, I'm going to take it.
Yep.
But then they're going to do what half the NFL players do when they get that first contract. They blow it.
Yep.
And that's what's going to happen. And so you need to find these kids who have a great family background, and you need to work on them and sell the position that we have been selling on Notre Dame for its eternity. That it's not a 4-year decision, it's a 40-year decision. It's not a $5 million deal from Nike while you're at Oregon. It's a $50 million deal when you include your degree and everything you can earn from that.
Yeah.
That's the position you sell. And in the meantime, you could turn around and tell these kids, oh, but by the way, we're still going to give you $2,500 a month. So it's not like you're going home with nothing. And, there's still something to offer to these kids on top of all of that.
Let me ask this, though. Right. You're right. And when I've dug into this more, people keep saying, John, Notre Dame is involved in this way more than people realize. But why is it a clandestine secret? I don't like that the social image and on social media is Notre Dame's not involved in this at all. Why isn't it a little more known that Notre Dame has a decent NIL going on? It feels like it's a dirty little word that only the players know about behind the scenes, because Notre Dame doesn't want the image of people thinking they're doing that when there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Why is it feels so dirty with Notre Dame? And that isn't the best projection of that message to the outside world. But whenever I ask, they're involved. It's a secret. I don't get it.
I'll tell you why it's a dirty little secret. Because to us, it feels like a dirty little secret. Oh my God, Notre Dame's paying players. Like that if you go to Miami, if you're a Miami fan and you find out Miami is paying their players, you'd be like, that's to you, man. That's to you.
I'd be like, how much? How much is it? How much did Uncle Luke give him? How much did old Uncle Luke give him this week?
Right. It's our perception of the university that makes us feel like they're treating it like it's a dirty little thing. But this is what they are doing, and it's just they're concerning themselves with this business with the only people it matters to, the players. The players.
Yeah.
And you don't see these kids running around or talking. Even Peyton Bowen, he didn't go out there and say, I got $5 million. He didn't do that. He's not going to do that. These kids aren't talking about the actual money they're getting. Most of it is just rumor. But it's the players are getting something. The players know they're getting something. So no, it's not a dirty little secret. It's just Notre Dame doesn't feel they need to advertise this. They're going to these kids in recruiting and say, this is what we can offer you as part of the NIL.
Yep.
The whole Dante Moore situation. The Dante Moore situation happened. Tommy Rees gave him a plan, and I don't want to turn this into, oh, don't give me, here comes the 8 million fire Tommy Rees tweets. Tommy Rees had a plan for Dante Moore, an NIL deal. The university put it together. Dante Moore's dad came in and said, Oregon's giving us more. And what are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do? Say, well, there has to be a limit. There has to be a limit.
Well, it's how can you?
Limit.
It's got to be so frustrating because how are you then pinned in a corner because some guy's uncle's telling you imaginary number that may or may not be true? You have to match with real money. Right. The whole thing is really uncomfortable. Like some guy's entourage comes to you and it's his uncle, and you don't even know if what they're telling you is. That's the other thing, Pat. People are making up numbers to get more numbers. There's no way for you to know to go back to Oklahoma and go, hey, Oklahoma NIL people, how much you offering? It doesn't work that way. So then you got to take somebody's entourage's word. Like this is just tough.
Free agency.
It's tough.
It's not actual free agency where you can have contracts presented to people. That's not how it works.
It's really rough.
That's what people don't understand. There's no regulation on this system whatsoever. Zero.
Now,
none.
Did you see,
there
Pat?
No standards
Pat, did you see this? Did you see that really high-level quarterback committed to Florida, and he's already asking out of his letter because the NIL money fell through? They couldn't come up with the money. They promised him to get the commitment. Once they did, they're like, oh, crap, shit, we got to really come up with this money, and they couldn't come up with it. Like, maybe if enough of that happens with that and like the Texas A&M deal with 20 guys transferring, but same issue kind of thing, maybe that helps wash some of this out. The one thing I don't care for, Pat, is everybody's saying, I need the NCAA to get involved here in regulation. There's no group I trust less to regulate this the right way than them. They are the ones who they are the ones who dropped the ball to begin with this, because what they did, Pat, is they knew this was going to get messy and they didn't want to touch it. They left it to the courts. The courts decided, and now they're left with what's left, and they don't want to touch it at all. That's what's going on.
But even like the court case, I mean, I went through all that. I researched it. All it said was you have to compensate somebody for their likeness. That's all it was saying. It didn't say how much. It didn't say you can't restrict it. It didn't say anything. It just said you cannot use someone's image without compensating them for it. That's what the court said. And it all stemmed around that freaking video game that we've all loved and played for decades.
Yep.
They had to cancel because of this crap.
Yep.
And the NCAA, even then, EA Sports offered to pay these kids money to put them in the game. And they thought they could get away real cheap, give them $100 and Xbox in the video game. And they thought all these kids would be happy because they're 18 years old and they're in a video game. And the NCAA said no to that. So, the NCAA from day one has screwed all of this up.
Yep.
And I think you're right. I think eventually what's going to happen is the bowl subdivision, the playoff, they're going to come together. They're going to bring the conferences in. They're going to dump the NCAA, which they could do at any time. It drives me nuts.
They already have nothing to do with the playoff.
We're not doing this.
The NCAA has nothing to do with the playoff right now. It is an independent entity. So at this point, I'm asking, what do you need them for? I agree with you, Pat. I think whoever's in the pool for the new playoffs thing, I think they create their own board, their own process, build that playoff out, and it's its whole new little thing.
Yeah. And then you could build a tight little organization that says, hey, look, the conferences come together and say, look, we can do this, but we're going to do it this way to make sure we can keep an equal playing field. Or otherwise, it's a complete and total destruction of college football.
Yeah.
It has only two ways to go. It has to go to the destruction of the NCAA, which is wonderful, and a new governing body that has tight regulations that isn't, God's sake, punishing Michigan for a freaking cheeseburger. And
man, even it's just Pat, you know how messed up the NCAA is. When I put out an episode defending Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, which I did last week, because you can't ignore some of the egregious, blatant things going on and then target this guy for recruiting in a dead period that because of the COVID and everything. It's a wild misuse of power, which is what they're into. Yeah. Pat, let me ask you this. I want to switch on this real quick with you. How do you feel about Notre Dame's defense next year? I feel like the offense is trending up, and now I'm a little more worried on the defensive side, especially up front. And the red zone thing, I can't understand how we're second to last in allowing TDs. What do you think's going on there? Are you nervous we're a little light up front? What do you make of this?
Yeah, I don't know what he has. I don't know what he has in those freshmen and sophomores that he got last year. I don't. So there may be talent there. We just haven't seen it yet. I could see how, like I could be Al Washington and aside, I could see this defensive line coming out next year and surprising me, because with all the seniors he had playing, it was hard. Good, talented seniors. I could see how it's hard to get freshmen in there and sophomores in there. So I don't know what he has. So I'm gonna reserve this until, and probably to the first few weeks of the season just to see what it has. The general instinct is to be nervous about the defensive front, because a lot of talent left. And so anytime you have a lot of talent leave, it makes you nervous about it. The linebacker core, I'm shaking about. I am terrified of the linebacker core, because if that was the best, like those guys did not play well just to begin with. And so if that is the best you have, like the freshmen and the sophomores that were on that roster couldn't get on that field and supplant those guys.
Yeah.
And now those guys are coming back. That scares me. So I am nervous about the linebackers, much more nervous than I am about the defensive line. I think we're going to have two shutdown corners. Benjamin Morrison is he's got 2 years left at Notre Dame, because he's going to be a first-round pick in the NFL if he continues to play like he does. It's just better. He is a lockdown island cornerback. The safeties, I'm up in the air about as well. I think there's some, like if you get a Peyton Bowen, I think things would be better, but you didn't. So now, but you still got some great players coming in. I think you're going to, I will feel good about the defense if there's a bunch of names in that first 2 weeks that I don't recognize, and they're flying around.
Yep.
He's just letting kids play. But if I start to see a bunch of names I know, and I remember for last year as missing tackles, I'm gonna be really worried.
Names that and guys moving slow. That's kind of what I don't want to see. Like, I'm sorry, but they were Pat. Linebacking is so cerebral and instinctual. All of the best linebackers just had a feel for the ball or where the play was going to be and how to where their guys to dictate guys. Like, and we didn't have that. These guys were late to do anything, late to shed a block, late to identify, late to close a lane, late to get home on a blitz. Like all of it. What, too much thinking, or are they just not physically capable?
Golden.
Or is how much of this is schematic, Pat? How much of it is Al dialing things up that doesn't help them either? How much of it's that?
Because you know what his defense reminded me of? Not of BVG's defense, because it was
off the charts. Like, you can't compare it to anything because it's so far off the charts.
No, you can't. It was just bad. It was just the worst defense I could see in my memory. It reminded me of John Shinoda defense.
Oh, my God. I remember it was aggressive. I remember they hired him. Aggression. We're going for it.
We're going to blitz.
Yeah.
We're getting the quarterback.
We never did anything.
7 guys. They would get 7 guys, and 2 of them would get blocked by a guard. And you're like, what the hell? You're sending 7 guys, and you can't get anybody through.
Yep. I remember.
And that's what it kind of – I saw so many blitzes where nobody got through. And I just sit there like, are these delayed blitzes and the guy waited too long? Are these, what is this? What is happening here? Are we tipping our hand and the offensive line is picking this up and they know where this is coming from? Is it too obvious? Like, I couldn't put a finger on it, but it reminded me of John Shinoda's defense. We're going to blitz and we're going to get to the guy. And then we never actually did. And then we always had a running back scored out or a slot receiver open over the middle, and it pissed you off.
And the one that's always obvious to me, man? When it's Leafau, I just see that hair getting blocked by a wall, and I see the hair flying, and it's just so obvious. It's him getting stonewalled, and I see that hair just flopping as he runs into a brick wall and never gets around it or through it. Oh, God.
The time that he put pressure on the quarterback was when it came from the front four. When it was a defense, when it was Foskey or something getting to the quarterback. That's the only time they did it. So, if that works, I would much rather just have my front four run over people like the '85 Bears did than than having to bring blitzes all the time. But you got to get pressure on the quarterback, and Notre Dame just did not get pressure on the quarterback last year, and that's probably my biggest fear the upcoming year.
Oh.
And even with that, Roger Morrison still stood his ground and didn't let anybody get anything out of him.
Yep.
Love that guy.
Yep. And the best part about that to me is him being so young, because usually by the time guys emerge at Notre Dame to that point, it's 1 year and then they're in the league. Like, I'm used to seeing that. At least he's young.
Right.
He's going to be the leader on the field and off. I love everything about that.
Like Julian Love, except for the other night. Oh my God.
Yeah.
There's so many tackles.
Yep. All right, Pat. Thanks for the call, my friend.
Yeah.
Very good. I'll come out and drink with you in the garage
I didn't
soon.
piss anybody off today, I don't think, John. Are you sure? I haven't pissed anyone off.
Oh, I'm sure you did. I just have to check carefully enough. There's no way. Every time you've said anything since I've known you, you've pissed somebody off. It's just a matter of who. Have a good one. See ya. Oh, man. God, that's funny. Kent Jackson is here. Kent, we've been wondering about you. I realize that the schedule hasn't been the same, but it's good to see you, Kent. I was really wondering with you. I didn't know if your schedule changed or we're in the off season, so you couldn't be here all the time. But I appreciate you being here. People have been asking. We just want to check in with you, make sure you're all good, man. Really good to have you here, Kent. 707. What's going on today? Good morning.
Hey, John. I've just been listening to your show because I'm running around here. I don't really know what to talk about.
That's awesome. I actually love that. I never really thought about that people might be like running around and then you just have it on and do that as a way to listen. Like, you could do that. One question I had, man, is number one challenge facing Notre Dame winning in the modern era. You have an opinion of what it might be that could be our biggest thing holding us back?
Yeah, I actually, now that you're opening that idea up, I was thinking about what you were talking about with NIL. And, I think I'm looking at it from a different way. Like, you were talking about it's an ugly word and, you feel guilty about it and these kind of things. I think that's your Catholic in you.
Well, it's the Notre Dameness, but it isn't about me. It's about how I know Notre Dame acts. Like, I'm projecting. It isn't about me. It's about I know how Notre Dame acts, and the vibe I feel around this all is kind of like we're involved, but it feels kind of dirty. It's like somebody who smokes weed every day, and then the next day it's legal in their state, and you're like, oh, can I do this out in public? Like, it's legal now. Like, I don't know, man. I don't want to see us lose our top guys.
That's an analogy.
I don't want.
Analogy.
Yeah, it's like you're doing it, but I don't know. Maybe I'm overreacting. And the other thing is, I'm open to this. People said maybe last year was a unique year that you got picked off your top couple guys. I don't know. We're gonna have to see. I just don't want to see it be a thing every year where our top guys get poached.
Well, the thing I was thinking about in that I'm taking a different stance on it is that I think NIL, and that's just another word for salary, I think NIL is basically should be to Notre Dame's benefit, because if they were smart, they would be leading everybody in spending the most money because they're independent. So like all these Georgias and OSU, Ohio State, all these guys, they pretty much have been doing this forever. So they're locked into a conference, and I'm not sure if it's like a socialism thing where each university gets the exact same amount, where Indiana gets the same as Michigan and things like that in terms of a contract, for television and all that.
Yeah, for TV.
Maybe it's prorated to the top ratings.
It's not. It's not. It's absolutely astounding. Under these deals, it is an equal revenue share for all that TV money divided among all of the members. It is wild to me that Michigan and Ohio State get the same TV money as Maryland and Rutgers from the Big Ten. They all get the same cut of the pie. And very soon, it's going to be near $100 million a year for the Big Ten. $100 million to be Rutgers and Maryland and get your head kicked in. $100 million. $100 million every year. You don't have to win a game. $100 million.
Right. And I say good for those little guys. But at the same time, I think Notre Dame should be able to take advantage of being an independent and working their own television deal. And by doing, winning championships, which means give kids these salaries, give them the NIL as much as you need to. And when you start bringing in revenue, all of a sudden NBC is going to say, well, maybe 90 million wasn't as much because these guys are the best at it and people are watching. So I'm saying spend the money, Notre Dame, and more than anybody else, and stay independent and get yourself a better contract than these guys that are going to get $100 million.
Yeah,
I think that can work. I think that can work, and we have to get rid of that guilt of paying kids money. I think that's the way of the game. It's legal, and you do it. And this is what's going to get them more money. And then you have the Notre Damers that are the lifelongers that say Notre Dame doesn't care about the money. Well, that's bullshit.
Dude,
they care about the money.
Of course they care about the money. The whole place runs on money. I mean,
that's right.
It does. And they have more of it than they ever had before. And it's, I don't know, man, but it's hard for me not to feel like we're in about as good of hands as possible navigating all this. I trust Marcus Freeman to do whatever he can in the right way, in a way I never trusted Kelly. So I do have comfort with that because I just trust the way Marcus operates, and I know he's working his butt off. That alone gives me a comfort I never had before.
I think, like you said, you said it earlier, it's really out of his hands with, his level of control for this kind of, this segment of being a head coach. I think it's all about the administration, and what they say goes, and he has to just, adhere to what they want to do. So, as much as we like what he's doing, he doesn't really have a say in money matters, NIL, and I don't believe so. I mean, maybe he has a little bit, and if he pushes for some guy, like he could have gotten Dante Moore. If that guy said, well, his father said he's not paying him enough, so these guys are offering more, then pay him more. Pay him more. Because they're going to get it anyway. So Notre Dame, if they want to be relevant and if they want to win championships again, you can play by the rules and pay kids, and there's no cap to it. So, do what it takes, and then all of a sudden NBC comes rolling around, or, maybe Fox, maybe, ESPN never liked us, but so I say no ABC, but maybe CBS. I mean, they might be losing the SEC.
But see, wasn't that the big question when they were talking about redoing the playoff format? Then that was a question of, what are you going to have to be included in that? Does Notre Dame need to join a conference for that? But it doesn't seem like you're going to have to do that. Notre Dame has their path. You're just going to have to play the extra game if you're, would have a bye. And so I feel like that eliminated some of Notre Dame's pressure to join a conference. Now it just comes down to that money. And what does Notre Dame's deal look like? You just need to be in the ballpark. It's not going to be $100 million a year like the Big Ten. You need to be in the ballpark enough, though, that you can put together the infrastructure behind the scenes to compete. It doesn't have to be the same, but it has to be in the ballpark. And I think it will be.
Yeah. See, I think what your last caller said, Patrick, your friend, even though he called me an a-hole earlier.
Jeez.
I think
listen,
right,
I can't control everything everybody says. Don't blame me.
Believe me, I'm not taking it personally. I don't care. I enjoy your show, and that's what counts. In fact, I know I told you about, I was going to email you. Keep a lookout for Joe and then a bunch of numbers, because I do want to offer some gift to you. So
that's amazing, man.
Look
Whenever.
out for my name when you see the emails coming through, because I don't pay anything through the internet. So that's the only holdup for being able to.
No problem.
Do that right away.
No problem, my friend. Anything else on your mind?
No, I was going to say something about what he had said earlier, but it left my brain now.
You'll think of it right when you hang up. That's what always happens. Write it down for next time. Write it down for next time. So I don't know, man.
What I was going to say you should do is put a banner down for, if you said they weren't as many people on Friday night, if you start laying a banner up there to say your schedule, I think you'll get more people right off the bat because they'll know when to look for
I
it.
think the problem is I don't know if I can commit to every Friday night. Like I have a family, I might have actual life obligations. So I don't want to get down a path where I promise 8:00 Friday every night and then I'm not there. And so
I agree. That's why if you did a banner to say, okay,
yeah,
this one is going to be, Wednesday night.
that's a good idea.
Just when you know you're available for sure.
Really good idea.
And see if you get some more traffic that way.
Yep. Really good idea, my friend. Well, enjoy your day there, California, driving around. Thanks for listening and calling as always, man.
I'm getting flooring putting in, so I got to go and meet with the guy now.
There you go. Take care, my friend. Have a good one. See ya.
All right, you too. Go Irish.
Go Irish. Man, I have nice callers. I'm just telling you, I have nice callers. Kenny, look at John rocking his always Irish merch while us peasants don't have any merchandise. I'm sorry, Kenny. Of all the things I'm trying to do this off season, the store's on the list, but I'm not releasing the store till I do it right. And I have a lot of things I'm building out that take time. Off season's the perfect time for it. So bear with me on that. Kent? Yeah, you missed it, Kent. We did the Friday night show. Everybody was having a drink. It was a little more lively than our 9 a.m. time slot, to say the least. Let's see. Here's a question. John, do you really think Freeman could beat USC next year? It is at home, so I am hopeful, but also you cannot go 0-2 against USC to start your tenure. That's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. I know they got the Heisman quarterback they bought to come over there and all that. I know that. You folks, this is Notre Dame football. You cannot start losing to USC. It's a bad mark for your tenure. It portends poorly for your future if you start losing to USC with regularity. I say it all the time. Brian Kelly's number one luckiest feature his whole time at Notre Dame was that USC was a flaming dumpster his entire tenure. So he didn't really have to worry about it the way we do now. That is Kelly's number one biggest benefit in Notre Dame of everything he accomplished was that USC sucked the entire time and he skated by looking like we were awesome dominating them when they were a flaming bag of feces the whole time. You can't go 0-2 against them. This one being at home, you got to get that win. You got to get that win. There's no way around it. 818, make it great. Good morning.
Yeah, I love how the Cajun Queen sent the Cajun curse to my face last week, and it was purple face. Improvement, okay?
I'm telling you, man, it looked like I was getting laser beamed and my face was melting and I was being beamed up to outer space, dude. Like I change one little thing in the studio and everything goes to hell and everybody's saying my face looks melted. What's wrong with me? Can't win, Rodney.
Dude, it definitely looked like that's the Cajun curse, man, because that was literally Kelly Purple, man. There was I don't want to say nothing, don't want to hurt your feelings, but I know you're trying some things.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
A couple more days, I had to say, okay, John, we got to do something, man.
Yep. I'm working on it.
This is only the vibe, man.
I'm working on it. Rodney, what do you think of my question of the day? You followed Notre Dame closely for many decades. You're a generation older than me. You've seen some championship moments and can remember the thoughts and feelings of those seasons. And I can't.
I'm half a generation older than you. Half a generation.
There you go. There you go.
Gap, so, yeah.
I want to know from all you've seen, what do you think is going to be Notre Dame's biggest challenge as we get into this modern playoff era for us to make a good run? What do you think is going to be the issue?
I thought about this a lot, man. And I'm like, it's kind of like what you said earlier. And so I'm going to encapsulate it by saying this. It is the Notre Dame mystique. That is both our biggest challenge and our greatest selling point. Okay? Because of the Notre Dame mystique, you do all we talked about this. team's best effort every Saturday because they're going into Notre Dame football and they're not intimidated, but they're still happy to be there and it pumps them up.
Yep.
That's a big problem, especially when you're talking about a school that unless you're playing, the Clemson game notwithstanding, and we've had some USC games in the past that have brought that, and pretty much any time it's a big game, probably Ohio State next year, notwithstanding, that's when I think the crowd really is to your benefit. But those humdrum games, man, where you get we saw it last year with Marshall and Stanford. That to me, because those are actual tangible losses, John. Yes, we can talk about NIL. We can talk about the transfer portal. Those add more problems, but there's also some good coming out of that, John. I'm looking at this differently. Okay, I'm going to push back on some of the people earlier because they're both a strength and a weakness. Listen, Patrick, welcome back, Cotter. I
Nice.
some things he was saying.
Nice. How have I not? Wait a second. How have I known that guy 20 years and I have not thought of that yet? I am extremely disappointed.
The whole time I'm just thinking,
damn it. I'm so disappointed now. Welcome back. What a great show. What a great show. Even I remember watching the replay of that. Wait a second. Now he's saying I used to call him that. I don't even remember. That's how old I am. Never mind. I already covered it. Never mind. Apparently, I already thought of it.
That's it. I just want to say welcome back when the thing comes up from now on. You know who that is. But honestly, dude, okay, so again, I go back to what I've said a few times on the show. It isn't, to me, it's not just an equal thing of what the NFL does and what we're doing. It's not just free agency, man, because this is the thing. Kids mature a lot past the age of 22. 17 to 21-year-olds going to make worse decisions than a 22-year-old. Not to mention, we don't know. We haven't gotten far enough, John, where we're going to see the busts of a huge contract. And here's this guy over. I don't know. Let's use OSU as an example, and they pay all this money, and then 2 years later, the kid never pops. So we haven't seen that value yet, and what that's going to do or not do for teams. So while I agree, you got to be a part of it, and sure, there are players that are be predicted to be great. That will still be great because of their. Again, I think parents have a big part of this. Their family, their community. You can sort of see that though throughout the process. It almost is transparent because you know what you're competing with down the line. The whole thing about, I wish we knew more about what those numbers are. Maybe we wish we don't. As long as the player and the family are aware of it. And John, also, this whole thing of this team concept of, they're in the top 10. It's just more about the whole team. Well, then what you're basically doing is you're taking care of your weakest link. And so maybe these other schools, they're paying the big money, but then maybe they're losing some of those guys through transfer portal or whatnot. Meanwhile, maybe they've lost their weakest link. So I just think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out 2-3 years down the line. So I don't think it's necessarily a disadvantage. And I think, Marcus Freeman, Jack Schwarber, and Brady Quinn, I think it's like you said, man, I think he's probably lingering around in the background with being ahead of some of this stuff. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle it. And my gut feeling is that they're handling it really well. It's just not as out there in the open to see.
Yeah. Yep. And listen, I know it's being worked on. I know it's being talked about. And maybe I'm overreacting. We had 1 year where our top guys seemed to all get picked off due to this problem. I just don't want to see it continue to be one. And the other thing, Rodney, is too, and I wanted to mention this to Pat, but I forgot. If you're looking at how to prevent some of these issues, because that's like the next step, the number one thing is for Marcus to continue to be very direct and upfront and honest with the players about what is reasonable to expect in terms of NIL at Notre Dame. I don't think you want to get into exaggerating what's possible, finding out it's not reality, then you create problems. So even if it's hard, Freeman needs to continue to be very direct about what this is and isn't at Notre Dame. And then maybe you can weed out some guys right away that are in for that, and then not give your resources.
That's really interesting. Think of it this way, John. Would you rather have? This is an interesting question. Would you rather have Dante Moore or a combination of Carr and Minchie.
Right. Well, those are two guys. I mean, I'm taking two because they both have high ceilings.
If you had to, I'm just saying, in terms of value, in terms of what would you rather have one Dante Moore, okay, but then you don't get anybody else? Let's just say, I mean, just using this hypothetically.
Yeah, this is a good question.
And Minchie.
That's a really, really good question because you haven't seen any of them play yet.
Policy that you don't have that Dante Moore doesn't. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think that played a factor in getting both those guys. I really do. I think if you get Dante Moore, you don't. I'm not saying that's not the better. We'll see a couple years from now. But you got a better chance because you got two guys now that the chances of both of them being a bust are not as good as a possible, an upside 5-star, but maybe an upside 5-star that has kind of, maybe his motivation isn't as high now because of this deal that he just made with, what is it, Oregon he's going to now? So, I don't know, man. We'll see. Some of these guys are still going to pop. But there's going to be some that are going to be getting all this money, and then it's like, oh, where's that work ethic now at?
Yeah.
We haven't seen that 2-3 years down the line and see how that's going to play. So I think, John, here's the thing. I think Notre Dame, what they're doing a great job of, they are targeting the high 4-star guys. Where Kelly would get, the low, he would get a few of those, but he would get mainly the low 4-star, high 3-star caliber guy. That was kind of Kelly's niche, was that high 3-star, low 4-star. What Freeman's doing is like, I'll get all the high 4-stars that might have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder because maybe they don't make it as much as the 5-star guy, right? And also, we haven't seen how that's going to affect the rest of the team. How does the team look at someone, like you said, behind closed doors? Maybe they don't know the exact numbers, and okay, maybe they're not talking about a whole lot, but that doesn't mean that there are going to be players that are going to have chips on their shoulders. That's going to help that. Again, I just think, I keep going back to this team concept thing. The Jim Harbaughs at Michigan, and I think that Marcus Freeman's at Notre Dame as two examples, the TCUs. I think it's going to help teams like that are sort of right there, but also have a team concept built in and a culture built in that's going to play a much bigger role than what I think a lot of people see on the surface. When you think of it down the line, when you think it through.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. Then there's a lot that goes into that too. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And again, I keep coming back to this. If I had to count on anybody to navigate,
another way of looking at it, John. It's just another way of looking at it, and we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, but here's what I keep coming back to. If I have to trust anybody to navigate this on Notre Dame's behalf, it's Marcus Freeman. Like whatever's possible in all this, we're going to get the most out of it with Marcus. I just believe that because of the way the guy operates. And so that's encouraging to me because whatever can be done, I know he's going to find a way to do it. And that excites me. So Rodney, thanks for the call, my friend. Always good. And you always make me think of things a little different. Thank you.
You got it, buddy. Hey, can't wait to listen to the rest of the show, man. Have a great day, John.
Have a good day. We'll talk to you. See ya. Oh, nice guy. Even though you all call him Scuba Steve. Hard luck there on the phone line. Andrew Gilmore, $4.99. I'm sorry I missed that, Andrew. I scroll back up. I don't want to miss you, especially if you donated. That's my fault, my error, and it's unacceptable. My fault. You were down on Reese early last year. Has that changed since Carr, Minchie, Artman, Buckner performance in wide receiver class? This is a very fair, good question, Andrew. Number one is, I do give him a lot of credit for upping the talent in the quarterback room. And so on that, you have to give him a lot of credit. He's the guy building those relationships. The parents like him and all that. That is great. Carr, Minchie, Artman, I can work with. That is a clear upgrade in the room and what I asked for. Really good job, Tommy. Buckner bowl performance, again, I don't know how much of that has to do with Tommy, like the hot and coldness of Buckner and what happened in that game. Good and tragic, everything in between. But the plan was pretty good. Here's what it comes down to, though. The next thing I got to see is I need to see all the guys Reese is working with get better the longer they're around here. I go over it all the time. Every Kelly starting quarterback got worse, not better, the longer they played for Notre Dame under Kelly. Look it up. Golson got worse. Tommy got worse. The numbers got worse. Wimbush, they got worse. All the numbers got worse. Ian Book, the numbers got worse. Not a good sign. Major red flag. All right? The longer you're around, you should get better, not worse. That's what I'm looking for next. I'm looking for these guys to develop and incrementally get better. And that never happened before. And again, some of it may have been Kelly. And so I'm yelling at Tommy, but by proxy, Kelly, I don't know. That issue's over. That issue's done now. That you can blame Kelly for this. And now Reese has his own guys. Now we need to see it on the field. And I need to see them get better. It was the biggest red flag of all time that all of those quarterbacks who started more than 1 year under Kelly, the numbers went down the second year. That's a joke. It is the ultimate red flag. What you're doing something wrong. Either with quarterback development alone or the roster you're putting around them or the staff. It is disturbing to me how the longer these guys were around, the worse they were. That's not okay, and it ain't real life. Last call of the day, 937. What's going on?
Hey, how's it going, John?
It's going very well. What do you guys got over there for weather? You're in Ohio, right? Are you going to get some of the snow we have now as it makes its way east or what?
Yeah, I mean, we got a little bit of snow. We were supposed to get probably a few more inches than what they were saying, but we have a couple inches out there.
Yeah, man, you guys get a lot of snow. For some reason, that belt, man, that highway belt going through, it's just always a lot of snow, I feel like. Stay safe out there, my friend. Any thoughts on today's topic? What do you think about all this?
Yeah, so I have a couple of points going back to last Friday. I think one of your things, you've mentioned it a little bit today. Like, what's one of our barriers to becoming a national championship team, right? Or even making the playoffs type of. And I really think I don't really think you can really pinpoint on any one thing. I think it all comes back to us as an organization, because look at our last organization, and even though I'm of the younger generation, I know, like, hey, Brian Kelly in my life actually got us to where I was really excited to watch Notre Dame. I wasn't just hoping for them to win that week. It was more of, I'm expecting wins. Let's win that big game. But look, we came to a point where, like, the guy running our organization can't win anymore. All right. And he decided to leave, and that's fine. I mean, eventually we were going to have to decide to, like, say, do we want to stay here or do we want to try and go higher? And I think, but I will say that while the roster sucked when he left, okay, I think that there's a very different attitude in the organization than the Charlie Wise days. And I'm just telling you that if Marcus Freeman had this team last year after Charlie Wise, they weren't going 9-4 or 8-4 or what, They weren't winning that many games, because I think just the added, like, look, all those guys, this was the most losses any of those guys in the upper classes ever saw was this past year. So I think they were more motivated to, like, try harder. They may not have been as skillful as prior years, but they were looking. But I'm just saying, I think that they had been in a mode of we win, we don't lose, and kind of sentiment. You build a kind of winning culture. I think Freeman is able to elevate this. That's why we did win against Clemson.
Man, you know what, though? You know what, man?
Yeah.
A part of this is you're talking about, like, that kind of culture and the winning. That's a part of why Marshall and Stanford hurt so much, because we were doing such a really good job of defending our home turf for so long. Right. That is, other than the obvious fact that they were bad teams we lost to. But, man, I hated that.
And I'm not a fan of Tommy Reese, all right? But let's put that aside for a second. I think that losing to Marshall and Stanford is a result of Tommy Reese being on his own for the first time.
Yep.
Look, he had a horrible game plan for like the first 3 weeks.
Now for
Okay?
Marshall, let me ask this. Even I'm saying this, which is odd for me, Mr. Glass half empty all the time. But for Marshall, could somebody tell me, John, it's not fair for you to really harp on Marshall because we lost our starting quarterback in the middle of that game and it messed everything up. Like, I've had people say that to me, that you can't really hold that, like that was your tragedy. And how are you going to blame it? But I still think it's Marshall, and you figure out a way to scrape through it and win, and then figure it out next week.
No,
you know?
I don't buy it. The reason why I don't buy it is because I go back to the same like talking point against Stanford. We should have been able to beat Marshall just by handing the ball off to Estime and Diggs.
Yep.
Like we should have been able to do that. And like we really struggled. Like, and look at how good Estime and Diggs was this year, and our offensive line was this year. But against Ohio State, who had a mediocre defense, let's all be real, they had their stats padded with, bad teams that they played against. It was a mediocre defense, and we couldn't do anything, running or passing. And but later on in the year, we did great. Our only downfall in the later part of the year was USC. And one of the announcers that kind of said a lot of the teams that had success was they had kind of spread offense. So maybe that's just, made it tougher for us to run. But point is that we have a good running game. Why couldn't we do it the first 3 games?
Yeah.
And then we
I get that there were some injuries to very early start the year, right? Wasn't Patterson banged up to start the year? So that was a part of the issue. But that
was against Ohio.
But dude, I struggle with your O-line. That's what we brag about as a fan base. And it takes you a month to get ready to where you can run the ball. This is not the NFL. You do not get a month of practice games to figure out your rhythm on the offensive line. By the time we figured it out, the season was over. We had 2 losses when it was 100 degrees out still.
So I'm hoping, I am not a big Tommy Rees fan, but I also think losing Brian Kelly, because Brian Kelly was probably much more heavily involved in offense. Because, well, first of all, everybody complains that he was overruling Tommy Rees, it seemed like, for recruiting and all of that other stuff. So
or how that offense should look, all of that. Yeah.
And so I imagine if Brian Kelly is controlling of that stuff, which he was lazy on, I imagine on game day he was probably pretty controlling of the calls too. So I'm just saying Tommy Rees was probably on his own there, and that's why we might have had a rough start.
Now, do you want, now that we're a year past that, do you want them to hire an assistant or somebody to help Tommy, maybe a analyst who's an older guy, seen it all, not trying to take not trying to take his power or his shine, but just somebody to be there? Do you want him to do that?
I'm not a baseball guy. All right. But I understand baseball has advanced analytics. And if there's any college football team, major college football team that is serious about winning a national championship, if you don't have an analyst on your staff that is not only during the week getting analytics of like, look, this is their major weaknesses, and even like, look, this defense subs, and when they put these guys in the game, this is their weaknesses. Like, because so much of like my sporting life was like matchups, right?
Mm-hmm.
I played a lot of small school stuff. We're like, look, matchups, because in small schools everybody has weak sisters, and even on the college level, I feel like that's also, there's a lot of weak sisters. Professional sports has less weak sisters, kind of thing. But look, if they're putting in a sub to give a guy a breather, you need to understand the impact of that. Is there going to be a difference in change? Because I guess it goes back to a call I had at the beginning of the year where I talked about us losing Julian Love against Clemson. You know what Clemson did? They torched the backup, right? Ohio State.
Dude, you want to know? Time out. I would like to highlight right now what a good job of coaching that was, that Julian Love goes out and the next play is right to the guy that took his spot. That is grade A, great coaching. I give him credit.
Well, but this is what, like, baseball, they have become so good at it that they no longer allow, like, infield shifts, as far as I understand. I think that's
Yeah, I think you got to stay on your half of the diamond now. Yeah.
So look, if having advanced analytics is so overpowered, right, that they're minimizing how you abuse such information, then you need to have that kind of information on your side of the ball.
Yeah.
And
the other thing is too, let me bring this up too. I'm not trying to overwhelm Tommy or the offensive staff, but information's good to have, whether you utilize it all or not. Like, all the analytics and all the numbers you can get are great. Right. And then you can look at which ones really apply and you could use, but more information's never a bad thing in this regard. Why can't you just hire an older guy, Cutcliffe, Helfrich, somebody like that, not trying to take Tommy's shine, not trying to be the boss, wants to be involved in the game as a supporting guy to help Tommy succeed.
Right. Hey, it's just like, hey, we don't throw at that cornerback in this game because he dominates everybody he guards, right? Yeah. Like, even just like a basic, like, hey, we're just not throwing his way, period.
Yeah. And you know what else? You know what else? I want to go back to something. I don't want to forget this, but you brought it up and I know I'm going to forget it. You were talking about, we were talking about early in the year, kind of struggling to run the ball, and then how the line came together, and then we were actually proud of that group towards the end. What helps next year is you're not playing Ohio State week 1. You got a 4-game stretch where you should be able, if you need to work out the kinks, you should have a month to rack up wins and then be in prime, push people around shape for when Ohio State. 9/23 is going to be a night. You're going to have beautiful weather in South Bend. Both teams should be undefeated. They're coming to our place. They're the ones with the new quarterback. Win that damn game, Marcus. Win it.
Yeah.
Win it.
So
win that damn game.
I want to touch on the class rankings and stuff like that. Stars matter, but they only matter to a certain point. And the reason why I say that is because I'm a bigger believer in having more like top 100 guys, top 150 guys. You know, kind of, if we're getting too many players out of the top 300, to me that's bad. Yeah, you want as many 5 stars as you can get. I don't know if there's any like limitation to 5 stars or anything like that. But
it feels like every time we get one, he gets dropped in the rankings the next time they upload. It's like, Brennan, it's like, Brennan Vernon's a 5-star guy killing guys in high school. And it's like, he commits to Notre Dame. Well, he isn't a top 300 anymore. Drop him down. I don't understand how that happened. There's some weird stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just saying, we're getting too many guys out top 300 or something. To me, that's the problem.
Marcus is changing that. Man, listen, 83%. Blue chip rate, 83%. Even missing on Bowen and Keeley and Dante. 83% blue chip rate. 7 years ago, Kelly had the blue chip rate in the 40s. People think I'm exaggerating Brian Kelly recruiting. He had the blue chip rate 5 years ago or 6 years ago in the 40s. You don't even have a chance to win anything major then. 40s.
And so that's what I believe in is more of just because I mean it's a big country with lots of high school football teams. If the guy's in the top like 200 players, he's good. You know, being ranked 198 versus 98, is there that much of a difference? I don't.
Yeah, you're right.
The recruiting world, the like 10 years before I graduated high school, there was no like advertisement of yourself. It was you go back to
it was your highlight reel and your class grades.
You go back to the days of when because you've been talking about owning Chicago area, right? all those kids went to these schools, and those were the schools that you picked from. Once in a while, you might have been at the game, and you might have just saw, hey, that kid can play, and so you might have picked up on him. But if you're just playing out in the middle of nowhere, nobody knew about you, all right? And today, this is like now 10 years after I graduate, I think there's so much stuff out there, I don't even know how people really evaluate. And also, the high school world has changed so much. People play with other great teams and everything like that. And it's hard to understand how good a player is when they're playing with a bunch of great players, right?
Yeah.
You know, very rarely do you get a Joe Burrow who plays with two all-time great wide receivers in college. You know, it kind of deal.
Hey,
But okay,
yeah.
But to that point, I was. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Finish.
So I was talking to my brother, you know, and you now analyzed it a little bit different than we did. You were like, well, everybody, like 10 out of the last 12 had a top whatever recruiting class, right? We were talking about it. It was kind of funny that you brought that up because we were talking about it, and we said the best way to basically guarantee yourself a national championship is to have essentially like a first round or a second round draft pick at each position. So one in the secondary, one in the linebacking core, one on the defensive line.
Your quarterback.
An offensive.
Yeah.
Right. Your quarterback. And look, this year, because you look at some of those the Alabama teams, the Clemson teams, they guaranteed themselves a national championship for the most part. You know, as close as you could guarantee it.
God, and even Georgia too. Like Georgia too, because you saw the way they were recruiting and you kept wondering eventually they're going to pop because you can't just have that much talent on the same team and not pop. Right. And sure enough, look at them now. They're back to back.
Right. But look, the one thing though is they could have not won it this year if Ohio State kicks a field goal to win the game. Okay. This year, I don't think that they have the level of talent across the board that they had prior years. I mean, I don't know what your thought is, but if Ohio State has AJ Hawk and Joey Bosa, just two players, AJ Hawk and Joey Bosa on the defense, they're national champs, right? So getting those big time guys is really big, but you got to get them across the board. And that's where I think your way of putting it was like, you got to keep stacking talent consistently, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And look, Georgia's quarterback is really good. But like, he's not.
Man, you know what? Let me ask this. I struggle with this. I watched them win the championship and I watched that kid be the orchestrator of it 2 years in a row. Does he deserve more credit? Do people undersell him? People look at the talent like I do and go, they have top 3 talent all over the roster.
You're gonna find out.
Right? Like I don't want to undersell Stetson Bennett by saying it's just all these other guys in the defense. He only has scored 2 touchdowns because they don't give up nothing. Like, am I underselling what he is?
I don't think anybody can really know. And the reason why I say that is that would you ever have thought Drew Brees would become Drew Brees?
Right. Yeah. Even though, you know what, though? I don't know how old you are, but I remember him terrorizing us at Purdue when he played Notre Dame. I remember that driving me nuts because I'm going, this is freaking Purdue. How do they have this quarterback beating us?
Yeah. So I look at Notre Dame's roster and I'm saying, you know, like last year's defense, really, we held USC to a number that we could have beat them if we have a good offense. We held Ohio State to 21. Yep. I think that was tied for the lowest of the year. So the only thing that you could say was really missing on our defense last year, without being overly critical, was like, look, we're missing a Manti Te'o or Jalen Smith. You know, that's what we were missing. That's to have like a super good. I understand we have some funny stats, you know, on defense that says we're good, we're bad, but like at the end of the day, the point total is the point total. And then on offense, like our offense was, and just to kind of keep this in like a one class team. Our offense was missing like Jimmy Clausen throwing the ball to Golden Tate and Michael Floyd. That's what we were missing.
Yeah.
You know, so like you're missing a couple. Like, look, there's 4 players that I just named. If we have those 4 players on our team who have gone to Notre Dame, we're national champs right now, right? So, you know, I don't want to get too hung up on like being really far away or, you know, we're right. Cause I mean, we're a couple of the right players away. So
Can I ask this?
I just think
Let me ask you this. This has really been on my mind, and you think about things deeply. Let me ask you this. It's really been on my mind lately. And actually, we'll do this as we wrap up the show. So we got a couple minutes left. Let me ask you this, though. Does your mindset change of how you want to see Notre Dame build the next couple years, knowing that if we have any chance of a championship moving forward, we're going to have to win 4 very physical, tough ball games in a row? Does that change at all how you look at building your team? Maybe going for more depth or spreading things out in different areas? It is going to be a war of attrition in a 4-week grind against all good teams. I want to make sure Notre Dame could hold up to that depth-wise. What do you think about that?
So I think Lou Holtz, he said he always recruited to beat the toughest team on his schedule. I think that's what he said, how he recruited.
Yep. And then anything under that umbrella, you're extra good. That makes sense.
So, like, to your point, you got to have depth, you know. And we've already talked about you have to have special players, but then you also have to have depth. And it's kind of funny that now that money is involved in college football, you really got to start building like a professional team. And what I mean by that is like, look, you got to get your stars, you got to pay your stars. I was a big NBA fan, and like look, it was like the super teams, you know, who won a lot of championships over the last 15 years. They had big stars, and then they had veterans on the team who were more role players who took less money, but you know they were winning a championship. And like they were able to stack so much talent onto teams, and somebody has to take a pay cut. If you're paying, and this also kind of goes into the NIL stuff. Like, look, Oregon paid some big bucks apparently to a handful of kids. I ultimately don't think that's going to pan out for them. Some people who know more about NIL, you know, like they said, Ohio State and Georgia and Alabama and seemingly Notre Dame, we're not paying freshmen money.
Yeah.
You know, we're paying when you produce something, we'll pay you kind of mentality.
Yeah.
You know?
And they all want it quick.
Like we're gonna put a plan together for you.
Yep.
You know, but like, look, we're not just gonna write you a check.
Yeah. Fast and free.
Say,
Listen,
you know,
man, a lot of fast and free money is very hard to turn down, man. You know, all we need is your signature and you got a bunch of money. Like it would be nice. All right. Finishing thoughts for you, my friend. We got a minute left. The floor is yours, baby.
Well, I guess I'm just excited for next year, and I will say you had predictions last Friday on our
the schedule
on the schedule, and I'm gonna be a Debbie Downer.
Okay,
and I'm gonna say we're gonna be 9-3.
All right, now let me ask this. Are the three the big three, all the big three, or do you have us winning 1 or 2 and dropping other games? That's a whole topic for another day. But if you're saying 3, right, is it the big 3, or we win 1 or 2 and drop something dumb game? What do you think?
We win 1 or 2 and we drop something else. But I'm telling you, unless somebody like Jalen Smith shows up in our linebacking core, we're going to lose to USC, and I know you keep saying you can't do that, but it's going to happen. All right?
Hate it.
But look, Michigan, Jim Harbaugh, Michigan, he lost to Ohio State a few years at the beginning, and look, he's made a comeback. You can always come back from it.
Yeah.
And that actually goes like
true.
the whole mentality. You got to recruit to beat the best. You got to recruit certain types of players sometimes to beat the best team on your schedule. Like, look, you need a dynamic linebacker, you know, to beat that type of player.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, I think we could go 11-1. I'm just saying I'm not a big Tommy Reese believer, so I don't think any of our offense is going to pan out the way that we are hoping it to pan out.
Yeah.
And we're going to lose. But, look, we can beat Ohio State. We can beat Clemson. I just don't think we can beat USC. We could even win a national championship if under the right circumstances. I just don't think we beat USC.
Interesting. And of all it's interesting you say that because I'm looking at the schedule right now on my board. Of all those games, the one that means the most to me for a million reasons is USC. Just small picture, big picture, what it means, the history, the future, all of it. Notre Dame and USC's coaches are always linked because they play each other every year. It's a big deal. We get that back on track. Thank you for the call. You always think things through, and I appreciate it. Give me a call anytime, man. Thank you.
Will do.
Have a good one. Oh, Kenny, always Irish. John, I was watching the replay of Indy versus Clemson from the past year and was looking for you. Where were you sitting? Picture the tunnel, Notre Dame's tunnel, opposite end zone, very first row of the upper deck. So where the new bowl connects with the old bowl, there's the walking platform, row 1 right there, row 1. And I actually ended up in an area with a lot of orange near me. You might actually see me. I'm in the Notre Dame jacket, the vintage Lou Holtz era one, front row. And that helps too. If you're looking very front row, you'll see me lined up dead center with touchdown Jesus, but on the other end zone. All right, folks, this was a good show. I didn't know what we were going to get today, viewer-wise. A lot of people engaged. Thank you for the super chats. Very thankful to have them back. Keeps the show going, pays for the phone line. Everybody have a good day. Be safe if you're dealing with any weather like I am. Everybody be safe out there. Take care, folks. Maybe another Friday show coming your way. We'll make an announcement. See ya.